Hello everyone, this is Akira broadcasting this special noodle class from Yamato headquarters, Kagawa, Japan. And this is Megumi, my colleague, and she's making a lot of noodles today. Like she only made a lot of noodles today, like on this Richmen Gold machine that we have like behind us. And she's gonna make some noodles, from scratch. During the demo, some of the noodles that like actually Richmond noodle machines is like ramen machine are designed to make ramen noodles, but some of the noodles that this machine is not designed to do. So that's what we kind of were talking about today. Limitations of Richmond machines. What it can do, what it's bad at. What it's bad at making, and so that we can understand more about Richmond machines, and in the process, we can understand more about noodle making methods and production methods that we have. So let's get started. And so today we are talking about so what is like first of all, like I want to kind of talk about what is ramen machine first of all, right? And then what is Richmond noodle machine? And like for those people who don't know what they are, then it's gonna be difficult for some of you to understand. So like I want to like address this question first. And secondly, like what types of noodles are noodles like that ramen noodle machines are good at making and bad at producing, and why. We're going to talk about hydration, ingredients, and then types of noodle, etc. And I want to address the limitations of a Richmond machine. Um, there are certain things that Richmond machines are not good at doing. So I want to talk about that. Um, Anyway, we're gonna go into the demonstration, about Richmond Gold machine, and Megumi is gonna make some of the noodle, like fresh noodles from scratch. And again, some of you like to have some questions. Please feel free to send them in the comments, and then I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. All right, so let's get started. And what is ramen noodle machines for restaurant? What is Richmond machine? There are many noodle machines out there, and then we're talking about like there are like noodle machines that are like on the bigger scale. For example, like some like noodle machines that are like producing tens of thousands of like portions of noodles like in an hour or so for chains of restaurants and for retail like supermarkets, and some like instant noodles, so these are like really big large production machines, equipment. But like in this class, we're just gonna focus on the Richmond machine, which is designed for a restaurant and small production. All right. So first of all, like usually ramen noodle machines for restaurant and small production is capable of like producing a variety of fresh noodles that are like low in hydration. Low in hydration means 25% and 40% to the weight of flour. So like 25% hydration means, so for 1 kilograms of solid ingredients, like which is like flour usually, that's 250 grams of water, liquid, mixed to it. So that's what 25% hydration means. And 25 is percent is very, very low in hydration. Very, very low means it's dry, meaning like hard. So it's a hard dough. So ramen machine has to have this capability of like processing like this kind of hard dough. So that's what like a ramen machine is. And ramen machines needs to be good at producing fresh noodles in small scale, for because it's for restaurant and small production, and that gives us the flexibility. Flexibility means, so like if there's like a local restaurant, so that are looking for a supplier that can supply them, for example, like 50 servings, like particular type of noodles, we will be able to like respond to that kind of demand request, right? So that's a flexibility that we can have like in this kind of small noodle rest, I mean machine, ramen noodle machine. And Richmond machine on top of this, Richmond machine has ease of use. So like Richmond machine is designed to enable like anyone to produce high quality noodles without much expenses. So anyone like who just started out right making noodles like a Richmond machine can just start making noodles that are high in quality, like as high as like some like well comparably to like some of the noodles like made by noodle making origins like who've making noodles like for 10 years. Durability is another thing. It's built to last, and precisions like I'm talking about like like these kind of machines like it's all about rolling process like rollers, right? Rollers like I'd say like life of this kind of machine, like the quality of this kind of machine. So when the roller is like kind of gets out of alignment, for example, like one side is like 1 millimeter and then the other side is like 1.2 millimeters, like it's not in parallel, it's not parallel, right? So then that's not precise, right? But like it's both sides are like 1 millimeter, like all the time. That's what the precision is, and so Richmond machine delivers that. And space savings, like so, Richmond machine, like for example, like the Richmond One Type One machine is designed to save space. Like it doesn't take much space. For example, like this layout, like plan, it only takes up like 2.6 square meters of operational space. So it's designed to fit into like small kitchen of a restaurant. And so usually ramen noodle machines or Richmond machines like usually go through these processes. Usually like so first like start with the mixing, and then what's important here is like hydration again, like hydration ratio. We talked about like the range, like 25% and 40% range. And first resting process and rough forming and combining, and then the second resting process and then thinning and cutting and portioning and third resting process. So these are the process like usually a ramen machine or like Richmond machine like go through. And so let's just for you to be like kind of see like understand like what each of the processes is like just go through each process like kind of briefly. So in a mixing process, like we just mix liquid ingredients. That's like water and concentrate and other types like liquid ingredients and like eggs, like raw eggs or something like that, for example, and solid ingredients, right? Solid ingredients being wheat flour, other types of flours, for gluten-free types, maybe like rice flours. So solid ingredients and liquid ingredients are mixed together in the mixer, right? And what's important in mixing is like of course like hydration. How much liquid, how much liquid is like you adding to the solid ingredients in mixing process, and depending on the hydration ratio, the conditioned dough size would be like different. Like so, basically, the lower the hydration, the smaller the dough size, and it also means it's harder. Like noodle texture is harder, and higher hydration, right? Higher hydration, like the bigger the dough size and the softer the dough texture. And after that, right, here comes the what we call the process we call rough forming, and this is just like kind of image of like looking the set of rollers like from the side, like kind of cross section of the roller, right? And so, we are processing, we are turning this like crumbles of dough into like sheet-shaped dough through rollers. So like we feed the dough, right, crumbles like dough, right, into the roller, and to turn them into this sheet, like single sheet of dough, and which is still rough, right? And then, but we want to like make it firm, like this is still like pretty fragile. We want to like make it stronger, and to do that, like we need to like separate this single sheet into two separate sheets, right? And then compound them through the roller. So we call this process like first combining, right? And then we repeat this process like one more time. We call it second combining. And after that, so the gluten structure, like dough, is like complete at that point, and so all we do is just thin it, right? Thin it to the final thickness, thin it to the final thickness, and like we gradually thin it, like just like, to keep the well gluten structure inside dough like kind of intact, right? Like without damaging it. So we gradually thin it, and so we thin it, and then we finally cut it to the noodles, right? Using this kind of like cutter, like we call it Slater cutter. And so the thickness, right? Thickness of dough, thickness of noodles is determined by the the roller, right? Thinning rollers. So that the roller gap is determined the roller gap, but the width, right? Width of the dough, I mean noodles, is determined fixed by cutter size. The cutter size that we use, and ramen noodle machine or Richmen machine usually like use this kind of cutter, and slither cutters, and they come in like different shapes, different sizes, and different shapes like square, round, like edgy, like depending on the kind of texture that you're looking for. And like kind of like noodles that you're trying to make. So, we can make them square, like rectangle, using a flat, using the square cutter. And we can make it round, for example, like for pasta, like spaghetti, kind of type of noodles. And we can make it edgy to have like kind of sharper surface to have like certain like texture, and reverse cut like for Ike noodle, like ramen noodles. We actually did a class like previously like on this type of ramen noodles before, and we can like make them curly, right? We can make them curly. Some people like curly noodles, and we can even like control like how curly we can make the noodles, right? So using this kind of well, it's a silicone plates, like kind of like elastic silicone plates, and we put them in the back of the cutter, and we make the noodles like they're coming out like gonna get stuck between these plates, and they squeezed out, right, eventually, and then in the process they get curly. And so we can make basically like any type of like any kind of noodles, and the Richmen machine and the ramen machine. And but we need to think about these type of like variables, and we already talked about these like in the previous classes. But basically these variables like define, like determine the noodle texture, which is like actually the deliciousness of noodles, noodle texture, and so protein content of flour, and the viscosity like, which means that like how elastic the noodle is, and well, you could say like chewiness, and then hydration. We talk about like the less hydration ratio, like harder, more hydration, like softer, and of course like noodle size. Talk about it. And so like the smaller, right, less bite. So like which means it's softer, right, and bigger the size, the more bite, like harder. And whether or not like how it's served, like if it's like noodles are served cold, then the noodle texture get tighter. So like it's like on the harder side, harder noodle texture side. And if it's like served like hot, like warm, the noodle texture like tends to be softer. And so this is basically the we call like a noodle texture like correlation chart, and it basically like kind of like shows different types of noodles that we can make, right, depending on the noodle texture. Basically, the horizontal line, it's just a hydration ratio, and like from 25% to like 55%, and then protein content of flour, like vertical line, that's how hard the noodle texture will be, like how higher the protein content, like harder. And so like it starts like between like 7% and 14, or like as high as like 14%. And on the right hand side, like we see like noodle sizes. So noodle size we talk about like how well this is basically noodle size. That's a side of kata that we talk about, like what we use, which kata we use, which kata size we use, like for different types of noodles. And so with these like variables, like we can determine the noodle texture. And for example, like Hakata ramen noodles, that's in the green circle, like on the top left corner. That's hard and thin noodle, hard and thin noodle, because it's low in hydration ratio, like high in protein content, and small in noodle size, right? And so you can see that like areas of noodles, like in this chart, like we can spot like where Richmond machines are good at making. I mean, the types of noodle like Richmond machines are good at making, right? So like this area is Richmond, like because in terms of like hydration ratio between like 25% or 40%. And what retrieving machines, well, not very good at making, like bad at making. These are the like high hydration ratio range. So that's like what like udon noodles are, like soba noodles are, some of the tsukemen like dipping noodles are. So yeah, so we can just see sort of like in terms of hydration ratio, we can see the yeah the what kind of like noodles like enrichment machines that not good at making. And the reason for that is because hydration ratio, like the less hydration, like less water, 25%, for example, we after mixing, right? After we mix them, out of mixing process, like we get dough like this, like it's very, very small. In the next slide, you see a big picture of it, but like it's very small in size, right? And then the 33%, for example, like this is like kind of standard, like kind of typical kind of types of noodle like that's used for like shoyu ramen, like shish ramen. They're fairly big, right? It gets fairly bigger, and then the dough size, like when it's 40%, gets really well pretty big, right? But like still, manageable for Richmond machines. Um, but then this is like for like tsukemen noodles, like dipping noodles, and but when it comes to like over 50% or so, and it gets really big, gets really big. So it'd be like kind of difficult for Richmond machines to be able to handle, like production process, especially like a rough forming process that we talked about. Um, so, and then these are the gluten noodles, right? And then there's like, of course, gluten-free noodles that has an option for Richmond machines to be able to make. As we did like in the previous class on the gluten-free noodle. So you can, for those who like want to know how we can make gluten-free noodles in Richmond machine, please check our previous class on gluten-free noodle. So this is the kind of image that we have, like the pictures of like low hydration ratio, like 25%. As you may be able to like see, it's almost like a powder, right? It's almost like a flour, but like just kind of moist it, like kind of with some moisture in it, right? And 33%, the crumbles though like kind of get a bit bigger, but still like kind of floury, like powdery. And then when it comes like 40%, the crumble like size of like chunks like get bigger. And um, like when it comes like 45%, which is typically well, it's still ramen noodles, but like we well, as I talk about like later, like this is like kind of considered like high hydration ratio ramen noodles, and that's 45%. And like um the when the hydration ratio like goes into like 45, like over, the dough gets no the dough size like out of like mixing process like gets like so big that, and then so soft that it become like really hard for um, Richmond machines to process it in rough forming process to, we talk about like turn it into like single sheet of dough. So, it's better for us to process it into this kind of like block of dough first, and then, kind of turn it into shape of like kind of single sheet shape for, for us to be like process it on the Richmond machine. And over 50%, like this is a picture of like udon dough, and it's like in this single chunk, like big, large, like single chunk of dough, right? So it's pretty hard for us to kind of put it in the Richmond machine and then like process it into noodles. And so rough forming, right? Rough forming, so 25% hydration ratio dough, because it's the dough size like pretty small. So, it's easier for us to turn it into single sheet of dough, right? Through the sort of rollers. Like, so we set the roller gap like to 1 millimeter, and, it's easier. It actually, because Richmond machine is like actually designed to handle this kind of hard and hard like low hydration ratio dough. And then 25% dough is typically for Hakata tonkotsu noodles, and 40% that's fairly big, but at least manageable for Richmond machines rollers. And so we can set the roll gap like to 2 millimeter, fairly wide, and we can pass that this type of like size of noodle, I mean dough, which is like being size and like kind of soft in texture through the rollers. But like when it comes like over 50%, the dough gets so big, right? And then the one chunk of dough like gets so big and soft, right? It's very soft, so it's very hard to handle. Like it's stickier, it sticks and it gets stuck on the roll surface as well, and it's basically like it's very hard to like process this type of dough through a process called like rough forming. So it's better for us to process it into turn it into the block of dough using different device that we use for in other type of noodle machine. So like this is the cross section of noodles. Like when we look at the was cut the noodles, and like we if you look at this like on the side of the noodles, right, and then you can see the thickness and the width, right. And so Hakata tonkotsu noodles, like that's like 25%, and hydration ratio is like usually thickness is 0.9 to like 1.1, and the width is typically like 1.1 to like 1.3 millimeter, and so that's really thin. And hydration ratio like 25, like, and then maybe like 28%. So it's very low, and so it's hard noodle and it's thin noodle. And shoyu and shio ramen, like kind of typical standard noodle, like ramen noodles. Usually thickness is 1.3 and width is 1.5, and hydration ratio is like usually like 30% to like 33 and then 4. Um, and skim and dipping noodles, thickness 2.1, and typically, right, and width is 2.5, and hydration is 40%. So it's relatively soft, soft noodles. So, and when we're talking about like udon noodles, um, but like there are many types of udon noodles, and then I'm talking about here like Sanuki udon noodles. Sanuki udon noodles, like we did a class on Sanuki udon noodle like previously. So for more information, please check our um, previous class on my YouTube channel. And the thickness is a 3 millimeter, and width is 4.8 millimeter. And so it's a big, it's a like thick noodles. And you can see like how like hydration ratio and then like noodle size so like corresponds to each other. Like because lower the hydration, like again like harder, and higher hydration softer. So harder noodles, like we should make it thinner, Because if you have like thick noodles like udon noodles, but like hydration rate is like 25% or something, then it's hard, but like it's big, right? And it's like hard and hard. That's not a good combination for noodle texture. So that's why you see this sort of correlation between the hydration ratio and the noodle size. Okay, so again, like Richmen machine or like ramen noodle machines with these big um, rollers. Richmen machine has like roller, like each roller is 163 millimeter in diameter, and this type of roller, it's good at processing like hard dough. So they're good at making noodles that are like in this range of like hydration ratio, like 25% and 40%. But like over 40, maybe like up to 45, they can make them. Virtual machines that like are are capable of like making these type of noodles like with just a bit of difficulty in operation. But like over 45, um, it would be like very difficult, like to the point where it's not production will be like not efficient, like operation will be not efficient. So if you're planning to make noodles that are like over 45% in hydration ratio, you we you know we should probably like think about getting some other types of noodle machines that are like better at making these type of noodles. So kind of talk about like hydration and what types of like, and I'm talking about that like what types of noodles like a Richmond machine is bad at making. And the udon noodles I just talked about, and soba noodles, that's soba noodles like that are made of like buckwheat, pasta, certain types of pasta, and then gluten-free noodles. And there are many gluten-free noodles in the world, and using like different ingredients and high hydration ratio ramen noodles and something like Chinese style noodles, like they're high in hydration, over 45%. Um, and it's like udon noodles. Actually, Richmond machine can make like really good udon noodles, but like in certain conditions. So I'm going to talk about that later. Then soba noodles, because like buckwheat itself is like actually gluten free. So like we kind of like talking about gluten free noodles here, and the gluten free, and then why a Richmond machine like or like certain types of noodle machines are not good at making gluten free noodles. Is that reason we talked about like in the previous class when we did the gluten free noodle. So for more detail, like please check our class. Then pasta, like it'd be like really easy, like when we're talking about like fettuccine or spaghetti type of pasta, but like certain types of pasta, like it's hard for Richmond machines to make. So I'll talk about that, and then we are gluten free, and but like there are certain conditions that Richmond machine can make. So I'm going to talk about that, and high hydration ramen noodles. Okay, so udon noodles, like this is a picture of like Sanuki udon noodles, and Sanuki udon noodles like maybe hard to make, and because when it comes to like when we talk about I showed like slide where the um, that hydration ratio and like noodle size, right? Like corresponds to the noodle texture, and then the higher the hydration ratio, the better, like harder. I mean, the softer, right? So udon noodles are usually Sanuki udon noodles, especially. I mean, they're soft, and like around 50%, 55% like hydration ratio, and so it's out of range. The hydration ratio range that Richmond machines are like good at making. And so if we want to make udon noodles, like good udon noodles, a good texture udon noodles on a Richmond machine, there are certain conditions. And we can make udon noodles in a lower hydration ratio, and we can like kind of limit the noodle size to like kind of small size. So kind of like that kind of corresponds to like a lower hydration ratio. Again, like small, like less hydration ratio, like the smaller the noodle size we should make to so like kind of balance the noodle texture. So for the noodle size, like probably thickness, we should limit to like 1.3 to 2.5. The width, we should limit it to 1.5 and 4.0 millimeter. Some, well, I think like a lot of people like wouldn't call this type of udon noodles, Sanuki udon noodles, but like, there are many types of udon noodles out there, like in Japan. So, we can still call them some udon noodles. And yeah, so this set of rollers like on the right are, the like the ones that are used in the Richmond machine, like ramen noodle machines. They are pretty big, like 163 millimeter in diameter. And udon machines uses this type of roller, like that 90 millimeter in diameter. So the kind of pressure that these machines apply, like on the dough, will be like completely different. So um, that's why it's difficult for kind of udon machines to be able to like process such noodles as like Hakata tonkotsu noodles, like thin 25% hydration ratio noodles, because it doesn't have like enough pressure, doesn't give it enough pressure. So again, so we're talking about the udon noodles. We should limit that noodle size and hydration ratio, and the corresponding hydration ratio. And type of pasta that Richmond machines are like good at making, would be any strong like shaped pasta, like spaghetti, like fettuccine, linguine, like some like pappardelle, kind of white, strong type pasta, and certain types of like sheet shaped pasta, like lasagna, um, is very easy for Richmond machines to make. And some people like are kind of like looking for making field pasta like ravioli or tortellini. Um, well, of course, like Richmond machine can make kind of sheet, just the sheet like skin of them, like and just because Richmond machine can make gyoza skin, dumpling skins, wonton skin. So it's possible. Just it's a matter of like just the ingredients, like what ingredients you use. It's possible, but like the fact that some of the Italian pasta machines out there, like that are capable of like doing the kind of wrapping of them as well. That's the function that like Richmond machine lacks, right? Um, so if you're just looking to make only this type of like pasta, right? Like ravioli, like tortellini, or like other types of pasta, then you have a better option. You have a better choice, alternative, right? Than Richmond machine. So gluten-free noodles. So as we talked about in the gluten-free noodle class, so gelatinization is key, and then um, gelatinization happens. So like basically like starch, right? What we're like applying heat to starch to for a gelatinization to happen. Like for details like what gelatinization is, like details with gelatinization, um, you can check our gluten-free noodle class, or like you can maybe like it's easier for you to be for you to understand what it is like by googling it. But just like some rice flour and then the starch ingredients, right? So we have as in the solid ingredients, right? And then we apply heat right now, temperature, but like it's almost like boiling water, right? Boiling water, and we just yeah, pour boiling water into like solid ingredients to make dough, and so we can incur the utilization, and then when it's still going on, right, like we can process it into noodles. So it's possible. It's definitely possible for Richmond machine to be able to like make gluten-free noodles. But if your, if your goal is, just to make gluten-free noodles, right, as a business, then well, Richmond machines are not designed to make gluten-free noodles in the first place initially. Uh, so we are, it may not be recommended. We sort of like kind of engineer like the way to make gluten-free noodles in the Richmond machine. So, but like if you're okay, so like if you're like um, noodle shop, like ramen shop, and like your main products like ramen noodles, variety of ramen noodles, but like of course like you to be able to like respond to demands, right? Local demand, like growing demands, like on gluten-free noodles, then you want to offer certain number of like gluten-free noodles daily, then well yeah, that's possible. So, but like if you're your main business is gluten-free noodles, then well, we may not recommend Richmond machine for you, for your business. That's what I wanted to say. And so soba noodles is kind of, well, could be like gluten-free. If you're doing, we're doing like 100% buckwheat flour mix. And because soba noodle buckwheat doesn't have any gluten, right? So um, it's difficult. There's some difficulty, right? Like in production process, like making them, like it's kind of cumbersome. If we are making, well, soba noodles like with the buckwheat flour mix, like over 60%, and then the other 40% or more needs to be like wheat flour, like other binding agent that have like some gluten or some of the like binding agents like they're already used in like a soba noodle making. And then we need to reduce the amount like hydration ratio to like 33%, 40%, that fit within that range, like of like between like 25 and 40%. So that's how you can make soba noodles, which are actually pretty good. Even if it's like buckwheat is 50% and the wheat flour 50%, right? 50-50. Next, the kind of soba noodle like we can make, right? Enrichment noodles are actually very good, but they're not gluten free, right? So, so again, like if your main business is soba noodles, and if you want to make soba noodles that are gluten free, then Richmond machine may not be for you. So that's soba noodles and high hydration noodles and like other types of Chinese noodles. Because it's high in hydration, like 45, like some of them like actually 50 over 50%. Noodle dough becomes pretty big, right? It's like very, maybe like too big for for Richmond machines to be able to like process kind of efficiently through the roller. It's their rollers, right? So we use this kind of like press machine that's used in the udon machine, and so we just basically like press this crumbles dough into a chunk of dough basically, and then um, we sort of like go through this process of like kind of folding it and then like press it and folding and press it, and then just sort of like develop the gluten structure inside dough. And so the dough becomes like this kind of lower in the picture, like kind of blocks, right? And then if we can make them into like kind of block shape like this, it'll be possible for us to further process it into single sheet dough, and then the rest of the process is the same um, as we kind of talked about like in the beginning of this lecture. Okay, and I want to talk about like limitations, like other limitations that Richmond machines have. So types of noodles they can make, right? So we talked about them, and then again, like what I want to say at this point is that like so you know just we want to ask ourselves like what kind of business is our main business, right? It's like is ramen noodles or like soba noodles, maybe like or like gluten free, right? Gluten free, like oh, I'm gonna specialize in serving gluten free noodles. Then Richmond machine may not be for you. We sort of like, well, of course, like still working hard, like to find out ways to like kind of engineer, like kind of um, ways to produce, gluten-free noodles, like better gluten-free noodles, like more with more efficiency. But it's well, first of all, like they are not initially designed to produce more gluten-free noodles. So if your main business is gluten-free noodles, then they may not be for you. So automated production process, like we get asked a lot of this question. So the Richmond machines, are they like automatic, like all the process are automatic? No, it's not. So we would have to like kind of do like as you can see like later like in demo. Some of the process like on like manual process. Well, we had to like, for example, like feed the dough into the roller in the first the rough forming process, and we sort of like kind of move the dough around, like roll the up dough from one point to B and point A to point B, and then sort of like kind of will help the dough sheet like kind of will feed into the roller and so on. So well, there's a bit of like kind of manual process, like but it's yeah, it's a miles of difference. Like if you are making, noodles, this or be using like kind of like crank up, like kind of like hand held, like kind of tabletop, like noodle machines. That takes like maybe 6 hours to make like 100 portion noodles. So, but it's not automated process. But like it makes it like really easier for for us to be able to like make good amount of noodles. So and then how many hours can we run Richmond machine? Can we run the Richmond machine like for 24 hours straight? Um, well, it's yeah, technically yes, but like it's well, it's like yeah, like but like UTM machines are kind of designed for restaurants again, restaurant business, like kind of small production. So well, there's no restaurant that well there may be, but like there's no restaurant that like kind of well, just run the noodle machines like for 24 hours, like taking three shifts, like 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, and then like making 2,000, 5,000 servings of fresh noodles in a day or something. Um, so like for example, like I'm gonna talk about like in the next slide about like well we kind of design like kind of recommend right like um, just a continuous number of hours like we can run Richmond machine like 6 hours to like 8 hours in a day and of course we have a lot of customers are using for example like Richmond one machine and then running for like 12 hours a day and making like 1,000 servings of fresh noodles in a day and then that's fine but like it's just that like if we design the noodle machines kind of durability like wise right if you run it like for 6 hours a day, and then like if you run it like 12 hours a day, like and then if you run 6 hours a day, like the machines, like the parts and stuff like that, like everything like wear over time, but like they were and then like the life of a machine like would be like maybe 10 years. And then like if you run it like for 12 hours a day continuously, and then the machine will like may sort of like breaking like after like 5 years or something, and then we may need to like repair some of the parts or something, replace some of the some like major parts, major components. So that's the difference. And of course like that's a virtual machines are like well equipment and there's no equipment that do not break, right? So, but like we need to like do the daily maintenance, which are like cleaning or lubricating, and so daily maintenance, like routine maintenance, um, and yeah, it's a machine like electric machine, which uses like gears and chains. So like we need to like clean them, like we need to like lubricate them like daily. But yeah, we make it like really easy because like that's something like we had to do like every day. So we make it as easy as possible, as simple and easy as possible. And lastly, like production capacity speed. So yeah, we have like bigger options, but like just gonna talk about like these four options and Richmond one. So production speed is like up to 100 servings an hour, and that's equivalent of like 12.5 to 13 kilograms of noodles, fresh noodles. And again, we want to limit the daily production, well, continuous operation of a daily continuous operation time to 6 hours to 8 hours. So like we usually say that like you can make like 500 servings a day, um, and then the one we gonna do like the pattern B, option B, like that's Richmen Gold, and that's a bit faster, and we can make 150 servings a day. I mean in an hour up to a maximum. And so, we say like 700 in a day, a max. And Pattern like this Richmond 2 and has a separate 25 kilograms mixer and, the noodle machine, Richmond 2, and almost like double the amount Richmond 1 can pump out. And so, we say like thousands a day. And pattern D, like so that 25 kilograms mixer and 2 units of Richmond 2, and that's 2,000 a day. And and of course, like we have bigger options, but like so again, like Richmond machines are like designed for restaurant and small production. So we yeah we get like inquiries, for example, like I want to make a new factory that's capable of like making like 10,000, tens of thousands of fresh noodles in 1 hour, or like 1 ton of like ramen noodles, like 2 tons like udon noodles in 1 day or something. And that's not Richmond machines are capable of doing. And then again, like if we run the Richmond machine, like Richmond 1, like 24 hours, then we maybe like make like okay 2,400 servings a day, and but what happens right to the life of the machine. So so that's the sort of like a limitation that I wanted to talk about on the Richmond machine. And some of the products, like other things, like like noodles, what the Richmond machine can make other than noodles. Gyoza skins. This is like spring roll skins, and this is shomei skins, and it's like the stir fry noodles, and so different products that well, Richmond machines are capable of making. And so um, but this is a basically very flexible machine, and yeah, so I hope yeah, we have like better understanding of Richmond, what Richmond machine can do and can do, like bad at doing. So um, let's now ask me to start making noodles on Richmond Gold. So this is a Richmond Gold machine, and it's a fairly new machine that we started shipping like a few years ago, like 2 to 3 years ago. And so it has the 10 kilograms meter, and then has a lot of functions that we don't see on Richmond 1 or Richmond 2 machines. And but like it's basically a rich machine. And so we talked about like we wanted to show you the types of noodles this machine is not designed to make. So today we are making udon noodles on the Richmen machine, and so you can set the you set the timer here, like a timer for mixer on the touch panel, and again this mixer is like 10 kilograms mixer, and so you can that means like you can put up to 10 kilograms of flour, but like minimum batch is 4 kilograms, 4 kilograms flour, and so this is udon flour. So we're making udon on the ramen machine, and so this udon flour, um, if you can remember from the slide, the protein content is the key. So the protein is 7 to 9%. It's like um, it's like 4%, 5% lower than ramen noodle flour. And what she's making now is that like she's making salt water. Salt water. So udon noodles use a lot of salt, right? A lot of salt. And if you want to know more about how to make udon noodles, like authentic ones, you can watch our previous class on udon noodles. But so we need to because we use a lot of salt, right? So some of the salt like don't melt, doesn't melt like the one round of like kind of like stirring. So we want to kind of like put the flour like and put the water like back and forth between like bowl and like then another thing she's putting is it's a vinegar, and you can use rice vinegar, kind of grain vinegar, kind of type of like grain vinegar as well, and because this is a high hydration ratio noodles, like so we are kind of trying to like go with the limit of this machine, and so this is it's like 42%, and it's like this is a bit outside, a bit beyond the like higher range of like hydration ratio for this machine, but I guess like depending on the type of flour we use, depending on the um, yeah, maybe like temperature of the water, um, we could go up to 45%, and yeah, so the temperature of water matters, and then the protein content of flour matters for how how it is like kind of like easier to be able to like process it on the again like rough forming process. Remember you are trying to make a single sheet of dough from this dough, right? So that's what gets like tricky, and like that's what like this noodle making process gets difficult. So um, again, like the larger the chunks of dough, right? Larger like dough size, it's it's harder, right? It's harder to it's kind of like more like kind of more like cumbersome, like kind of um, yeah, because like it's softer and it gets stickier, and then it's bigger, so it's hard to like kind of like well feed them into like rollers, right? Set of rollers, and then turn it into a single sheet of dough. Um, and then so this mixer uh, actually rotates is rotating, right? Rotating the blades, mixer blades at 75 rotations per minute, and so it's like kind of ideal kind of speed, mixing speed for yeah, noodles like ramen noodles, definitely. And So it mixes the dough, right? Like flour, solid ingredients, and like liquid ingredients to like kind of ideal condition. And actually making me like tested this different hydration ratio. And, like he tried to do like the 50% hydration ratio, like udon noodles on this Richmen Gold machine, but it was just was almost like impossible to um, turn that dough into like 50, like that high hydration ratio dough into single sheet of the dough, because it like the chunks were too big, and then like the dough was like so soft and like they're sticky, and so it was. She said like it was like almost impossible to do like 50% hydration ratio, plus the protein content of flour is lower, which makes the dough even softer than if you make it with the ramen flour, which is like which has like protein content of like 11%, 12%, which is like a lot harder noodle texture. So like um, that's why it was hard like to yeah, do that like wrap forming process, the 50% hydration ratio. Exactly the same recipe, exactly the same flour, exactly the same ingredients, but just 8% higher the hydration ratio makes it almost like impossible to work on this machine. So hydration ratio is like is very important, and so it just even like 1%, like 2% hydration ratio difference makes a big difference, like in noodle texture, softness. Even if you're using exactly the same wheat flour, exactly the same ingredients. So the mixing is almost over, and so you can like reverse rotate the mixer blades for you to be able like kind of make it easier to take off the dough stuck on the blades, and we're gonna take it out on the plastic bag. And the reason we take the dough out like in the plastic bag is that like we usually go into first resting process like after the mixing process, but just for the sake of demo, right? Like you can't. So we usually like let the dough sit like for 30 minutes to an hour, but like we don't have that much time, so like we'll just skip it for the sake of this demo and go into the rough forming part. So another feature or function that this Richmen Gold machine has is that like this automatic feeding function. So you don't have to like feed the dough like to roll it by hand. It does it for you, and because it has like all these sensors to detect how much of the dough is like going to the roller. So it has like sensor, right? And then like see the red light kind of like pointing at around the entrance to the roller. So that's sort of like dictating how much dough is like being fed to the roller. And if the dough is like too little, um, this machine like moves the kind of feeding conveyor like forward to move more dough to the feeding. So it does it like automatically, like so you don't have to like do it by hand like manually. And uh, because if you do it like manually, like it takes a bit of like kind of getting used to do like kind of experience, just practice a little bit, um, depending on the carbohydration of the dough you're working. But this machine, just does it like automatically, and then so there's nothing you know there's nothing we're doing right now. Like my Mimi is doing right now. Like she's just standing around, just watching the dough going to the roller. But like of course, like you can do like other things while Richmen Gold does its job. And so this part is automated. So this process, the rough forming, is the part where it gets difficult. Like depending on and now like she put her hand through the sensor, and there's a sensor actually like kind of invisible sensor like kind of beaming um, between these rails, and then if you put your hand in there, that machine stops, and so that your hand wouldn't be well wouldn't be like fit into the rollers. And so we talked about this process, combining process. So basically like separating this single sheet of dough like into two separate sheets, and then combining these two separate sheets through roller. And and yeah, and then because that was like two millimeter initial roller gap that we did like in the rough forming, and then we're compounding them like this 2 millimeter um, sheet of dough, right, to one. So this is like 4 millimeter, like the dough sheet that's equivalent of like 4 millimeter thickness is going through the roller, right? And then so 4 millimeter, but we can't like just leave the like roller gap to 2 millimeter, and then that would be like too tight, too much pressure, and that would like damage the gluten structure inside dough. So we apply this rule of like 30% reduction rule, and then so we just subtract the 30% thickness, the current thickness, to determine what the roller gap we need to set. So 4 millimeter times like 0.3, 30%, that's 1.2 millimeter, right? And so we subtract this 1.2 millimeter from 4, the current thickness, and we get like 2.8. But like to make it simple, like we just uh, yeah, set the roller gap to like 3.0 millimeter. So combining process basically like strengthen the new dough, and that kind of helps develop the gluten structure inside dough, and then basically makes the dough stronger. And so we normally want to repeat this process like of combining process like twice, depending on the type of noodle you're making. But after, so like after this process, yeah, like after this process, like combining process, like we want that dough to be stuck together, like like because we are combining them, right? Combining them, so we want to stick them together. But like after this process, right? It's because this is especially this is a high hydration ratio noodle, like which tends to stick together. It's very sticky because it's wet. So yeah, we want to dust it. So we start like dusting process to keep them from sticking. Yeah, so we want to dust them, right? So like we have this machine has like automatic duster on the back and the rear position. Um, then doing the dusting on that combined sheet of dough. So so udon noodles are being made on the ramen machine, and so actually again like if you limit the noodle size and like noodle size and then um, adjust the hydration ratio according to that noodle size, which means that like we need to reduce the like hydration ratio from the usual hydration ratio of udon noodles. Then we can make like pretty good udon noodles, and then I'm sure these udon noodles like are very 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 good. So after second combining process, we're just gonna thin it. You're just gonna thin it, right? Just gonna thin it to the final thickness. The final thickness that we want to have, when this dough is like cut into noodle strands. So again, the roller gap um, determines the thickness, right? Thickness of dough. Maybe the cross section of the noodle. The thickness of dough is determined by the roller gap, and width is determined by the groove of the slither cutter. So again, like applying 30% reaction rule. Right now it's being thinned at roller gap of like 3 mm. The previous roller gap was 4, and she just stepped on these the switch, the foot switch, and then while you're stepping on it, we can hold the operation. We can pause the operation. Um, so that comes in really handy, like when you panic, like when you panic, like they like was that like you can't react like fast enough, then you can just like step on it and then like just stop the operation like kind of temporarily. And so that was 3 mm, like it's gone through, and then the actual thickness is actually 3.5 mm, and so there's a difference of 0.5 mm, and actual thickness is always bigger. Actual thickness because like in its dough and it bounces back. Um, so this difference is very important for us to be able to like calculate the final roller gap we need to set to get the final thickness, in actual thickness of noodles. And so we can expect this dough to bounce back, right, by 0.5 and so we set the roller gap to, well, that point, right, to so this is the cutter that we are talking about, like slither cutter, and then it's number 10. That means this width of like each noodle be like 3 mm, and so she set the roller gap like to 2.1, and after 2.1 mm, then we expect thickness to bounce back like 0.5, right? So final thickness we expect to be like 2.6, 2.1 plus 2.5, 2.6, and then the width is going to be, it's fixed though, 3 millimeter. So the size of this noodle will be like udon noodle will be like thickness 2.6 and the width 3.0. So we're gonna start cutting it. So as you can see, the point where she's catching noodles is like relatively high, and so it's like 60 centimeters like from the floor. And so, well, if you want to like make Richmen Gold like kind of like showcase of like kind of you want to showcase the Richmen Gold like in a restaurant or something. It's a good piece of equipment to have, like, cause you can show the sort of like highlight of noodle making, which is like kind of while catching the noodles that are coming out of the machine, and it's more visible. It's, it's higher in the position. So and you can of course well adjust the serving size by changing the length of the noodles. Like it's very easy, like just touch of knob, and the longer the noodles, right? The bigger the serving size, the shorter, you know, smaller serving size. And you can see like really long one, and you can see really short one, right? It's very easy, like just touch of the volume. Right, so that's how you can make like really good udon noodles on the Richmen Gold machine. And just to show you guys, like she spent like an hour or so, like making different types of noodles on the Richmen Gold machine. Um, she made like some pasta here too, and different two sizes, two cut sizes, and so it's beautiful, right? And so and this is like Ike ramen. It's a type of ramen that like we can I kind of briefly like can explain like kind of it's a reverse cut noodles, and then reverse means that like the width, I mean thickness is like way bigger than the width. So this is the width, it's the width, but like this is the thickness. So that thickness like shows like kind of rough surface. That's where the like kind of soup gets absorbed from, and so it has like a kind of distinctive like kind of texture, and then um, as you eat the noodles, you kind of taste more of the soup. Um, well, we did a like class on Yeke ramen previously, so like if you're interested, like just please watch the class. And so these are udon noodles, and then like so this is a 42% udon noodles, right? And this is a 50% like I kind of talked about, right? Which she said like was like really hard, difficult to make, and then see how much loss like she has, right? It's like so because it was difficult, right? So she couldn't make the same number of like same number of portions of noodles, and then what she wants to show is that like how different they are, like in terms of like kind of elasticity. Like it's exactly the same ingredients, right? See how stretch, how it, how it stretches, right? How the noodle strand stretches for 2%, but like it's 50%. See, it stretches further and further. Like it's very, see, like softer and then more elastic. Just the difference of like 8% in hydration ratio. That's the difference. Like it's difference of like in hydration ratio makes like just 8%, but it's yeah. But like still like 42%, it stretches that much, and then like it's very elastic, and then these are very good udon noodles. So yeah, I so the lecture like I kind of talked about like more of like what the limitations of Richmond machines, but like these are the kind of things like you can do with the Richmond machines as well. Um, you know, Even though Richmond machines are not designed to make these types of noodles, but it's possible. And then if you adjust the recipes and everything, like it's feasible, and you know it's easier, and then you can make them efficiently. You can make them efficiency with the efficiency and then consistency, and yeah. So that's commercially uh, viable. Yeah. Okay, so that was what I had for this class, and then um, yeah. So yes, so thank you very much for joining us for this class, and um, we are doing this kind of class like every week, and um, we like to focus on like some, of course, like what you want to know, what you want to learn, and then we try our best, like get ourselves like prepared for you know your for your interest, like to be able to like respond to your interests. So if you have like certain things that you want to learn about, you're curious about, like please send them to us, and we'll be like very glad like to receive those comments and a message on like what you want us to like kind of teach in this kind of class. So please, we're waiting for your yeah message. And before we go, right, we just kind of like to show how we clean the mixer component, which actually gets the dirtiest, right? Um, which gets dirtiest like every time like we make noodles. And again, like Richmen Gold Richmond machines are like electric machine, and um, as much as we like to, we are tempted to use like water. Um, it's electric, there are a lot of like electric parts, so it's they they get short circuit like easily. So we use these kind of items like sponges, like so we soak those sponges like water, and then put them in the mixer, right, and you just run them, right, run them, run the mixer for like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and basically the mixer just cleans by itself. And so after that, we just wipe it with that dry cloth, like towel, and then inside, right? And then just spray like alcohol, like just to sanitize it, like kill off the bacteria, and then let it dry. And that's it. So it's very easy. And then so the cutter, right? Cutter has like these scrapers on the back of the cutter, and to clean the cutter, like kind of like daily, right? Daily as a daily routine, like we just take this brush, and then just kind of sweep like all these dough stuck on between the grooves, or like the flowers, and that's that's about it. And then just put it back in the box or whatever you have. All right, so yeah, so that was what we kind of had like for this class. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you. Bye bye.